Hello, internets! This is Space United. I am Adam Brinckerhoff, and I am here with Troy Dunn. Say hello, Troy.
Hello.
So you don't have to look at my face anymore. I'm going to switch over to our slides, if I can get it to work, which is not working so far. But I will ad-lib and say that we are here doing our weekly hangout. We're going to talk about a topic of the week, and then we are going to talk about our guest for about 10 minutes, and then do live Q&A with you. And you're still looking at me because I can't figure out the slide share. 1 second. Troy, is the slideshare working on your end?
I've just pulled up the Hangout on my side of the slides if you want to view them over there.
Yeah. Let's see. Just some minor technical difficulties, no big deal. Let me, let's see. Let me hop off and hop back on real quick. So, Troy, kick us off and introduce today's topic, and I'll be right back.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're going to talk for a little while about how to grow the space industry. In about 10 minutes here, we've got Dr. Jeff Forrest, who's going to join us as well to talk about this. But once Adam gets back, we'll jump in fully and talk about what's being done right now to grow the space industry across the multiple sectors, government, private, public, and talk about what opportunities there are for people to get involved as well. Adam, are you back with us? That sounds like maybe he's there now. Adam, are you there?
I'm back, and I have screen share.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back. What have we talked about? Did you solve all the world's problems?
Absolutely. I just started mentioning that we're going to be talking about how to grow the space industry. We're looking at that screen right now and wanted to jump into maybe what the government is doing to grow the space industry right now, or maybe just the state of things.
Gotcha. Okay, so as Troy mentioned, we're talking about how to grow the space industry, and just as a quick check, Troy, can you see the slides on my screen?
Yep, looking good.
All right, hopefully we're broadcasting over here now. But regardless, for all of you out there that enjoy the space exploration world, you're probably wondering where do we go from here? And the first thing to do before we get there is to talk about what we've done in the past. So as many of you know, there's this little government agency called NASA. This is their current website. NASA stands for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and it was originally formed by the United States government to promote both aeronautic and space research and exploration. And so a lot of what we've accomplished as a human race, NASA has done both robotically and manned missions. And the government model was really effective early on because the government had a lot of money, and they decided that they wanted to pour it into things like landing on the moon and other major achievements. But recently, their budgets have been declining, and not only has their budget in terms of dollars been declining, but also the percentage of the American budget, like the overall government budget, has been declining. And that's just an indication that the United States government has other things that are more important to it right now than NASA, which, I mean, that is what it is. We won't get into the politics of that. But there are other governments that are working on space exploration, but none quite to the level of the United States. Obviously, there are some that are making major progress in areas that they have never done before. The Chinese are doing a lot. The Indians are doing a lot. The Russians have always done a lot for a long time, and then even some of the smaller nations as well. And you may know that the Europeans have ESA, which is actually a conglomeration of a number of different smaller European countries that work together for their space exploration as well. So a lot of the government is kind of on the down slope, but a lot of what's on the up slope and making big news is private. And Here you have probably the biggest name in the private industry. This is SpaceX. You may know that they've contracted for NASA. You may know that they've done a lot of really cool tests with some new technology. But Troy, give us your I don't know, quick thoughts on where SpaceX has been and where you think they're going and how they fit into this puzzle.
Sure. Well, I think that two of the key things that SpaceX is doing that's helping is how they're going about the business of space exploration. One of the things that their organization talks about is co-location engineering, and the fact that they have all of their engineers, mechanics, everybody under one roof, and how that saves time across the process because they're not waiting for one facility on the other side of the country or whatever the case may be to weigh in on a topic. Everybody's at the same place, and they think that that's one of the keys to their success. Another thing that I know that they're doing, and there's lots of small examples of this type of thing, but the type of welding that they're using in developing their spacecraft is significantly reducing the cost of developing their rockets. So, when you think of, how do we grow the space industry, most people wouldn't think of, trade sort of applications and how that affects it. People tend to think of, how do we perfect the nozzle of a rocket or whatever the case is, but it's really small things sometimes, like how a weld is done, that can save time and money and grow the industry. And so I think that everybody needs to be looking, at their own area of expertise and skills to see what they can do. And I think that that's one of the ways that SpaceX is improving how we're getting to space.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people concentrate on the big scale of space, but ultimately satellites or other spacecrafts are just like anything else. They're a combination of lots of little parts, and so if you improve things on a small scale, then that's going to improve it on a big scale, and sometimes it really exponentially improves it, because I mean, if you think about the number of welds on a rocket as opposed to on a little kid's toy that you might have, I mean, it makes a much bigger impact. So that's a great point. Mm-hmm. The next area is education, and we have a little free plug for our guest coming up. This is Metro State University. For those of you that don't know, Space United, we are based at our headquarters in the Denver area, and this is one of our local partners who we've got a lot of great work and relationship with. But more and more colleges and universities around the country, and that's not just the United States but around the world, are developing aviation and aerospace science or aerospace engineering departments, whether it's to teach their students to learn the math and the physics behind it, or to teach them maybe some of the trades that they might need to become a manufacturer in the area, or anything in between. There's tons of work being done, and that's not just on the college level either. It's on the high school level, and sometimes even in the middle school level, in terms of the projects and the research that are being done. So it's not just an area of growth for the industry from the perspective of education, where students can gain the knowledge and the degrees that they need to apply in the industry, but also there's tons of research being done, and most of it is a collaboration between professors and students, where they're taking an idea and running with it, and it may not be something that is immediately profitable, so it might not be something that the private or even the government industry is looking at, and so it's a great opportunity for these unique problems to be solved, and then a lot of times they lead to big breakthroughs on a bigger scale in the industry. Mm-hmm. Next up, we have the hobby area, and this is just kind of a reminder that no matter how much time or money you have, more and more today there are ways to get involved in space exploration. And so this is another organization that we've worked with in the past, just as a local example. Troy, would you tell us a little bit more about Edge of Space Sciences and what they do?
Sure. Well, we first worked with EOSS through Metro State University. There's a course there on the Intro to Space, I believe it is, or something along those lines, and they get to participate in a balloon launch, and that's actually done through EOSS, which gets a large part of their funding through the Colorado Space Grant. And their organization started out with amateur ham radio operators, which just happens to be one of the better ways of communicating with a high altitude weather balloon. So they've done almost 200 launches to date. It's a great group, but there's groups like this all over the country in lots of different states that are participating in space and growing the industry from kind of that amateur level and getting involved that way. Another great example of this would be Stephen Murphy, who does do-it-yourself space projects and things like nano satellites and there's lots of ways that you can get involved at the do-it-yourself level, and so space can be a hobby for people, and obviously it depends on how much time and effort you have to put into it, but I think that there can be a lot of things contributed by individuals from wherever they all over the world.
Great. And so lastly, again, just a quick sort of tie-in and reminder of what we do here at Space United. We're a nonprofit humanitarian space agency, which is just a really long way of saying we are a public agency for good, and so we want people to get involved of all professions and ages and nationalities and ethnicities. There's nothing stopping you from having your say in terms of what type of work that we do, and our specific mission is to do humanitarian work with space technology, and there's lots of ways that we're doing that. But today we're just focusing on this idea that it's a public agency. It's a public, not in the sense of a government agency, but because we are not involved with any particular government, but we are open to the general public, and that's what really that means. And so we want the general public to interact with us online and at our events and any way that you can to tell us what you think and tell us what kind of missions you think we should fly and why, and all the other different things that are important to you, because ultimately your time and effort and money are going to be what drives the next generation of space exploration, or at least that's what we think, and we're interested to see if you agree. So let's jump into our guest interview of the day. I mentioned Metro State University before, and this gentleman is the chair of their Aviation and Aerospace Science Department. Jeff, are you there?
I am here.
Welcome. It's great to have you. Just to let you know out there on the internet, Jeff is also an advisor. We have both a board of directors and a board of advisors, and he's one of our advisors. So my first question for you, Jeff, is why did you decide to become an advisor of Space United, and how did that come about?
Well, Troy reached out to us, and I was very impressed with the enthusiasm and the spirit and the direction that he wanted to take Space United. And I really was looking for a group that was coming from an angle of just being open to everyone and anything. And I think that's one of the principles of Space United that I saw immediately after discussing Troy's vision for the organization. And so many organizations in space have got, space related, have got some sort of agenda, and I really wanted to get an organization involved for our students that would allow folks to go any direction they wanted to in terms of expanding their knowledge, space-related opportunities and sciences. So I thought it was a good fit.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit more about your day-to-day work at Metro State? Do you teach classes? Do you conduct research, or are you more just kind of guiding the direction of the department as a whole?
Well, sort of all of the above. I do not teach that many classes, although I started in the department nearly 20 years ago, teaching our space courses. You know, now that I'm chair, I do mostly the independent study, cooperative education, internships, and I have a group of students that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis that are doing space-related research as well. So I do have a number of faculty that are full-time and are now leading our space programming.
Okay, great. So
Jeff, what's the student? Sorry to cut you off there, Adam. What's the student project that that you guys are working on, and how does it relate to space?
Yeah, that's, thanks for asking that. There are a lot of, again, in that spirit of letting folks go whatever direction they want to, we've got a pretty diverse portfolio of projects. One is a group of students have digitized the National Airspace System, or the portion of the NAS along the Front Range of Colorado, in order to simulate various hypothetical commercial space-based operations, primarily the return of a shuttle, if you will, for a commercial space vehicle, doing suborbital tourism, just to see what it looks like, what kinds of interaction that vehicle might have in the airspace system with both general aircraft or general aviation aircraft and different types of categories of airspace. So there's the space commercialization side of operating vehicles in the NAS. We've got another student that is working on rendezvous with near-Earth objects for potential space mining or space-based resource retrieval. We have another group working on human factors, taking a look at if you're going to fly some type of hybrid vehicle that goes through the atmosphere into perhaps an orbital operation and then returns, what kinds of training are going to be associated with that as that becomes more common in commercialized organizations, because not everybody's going to go, like you guys mentioned, NASA's budget's being cut back. We're going to have to migrate to commercially sourced forms of training for astronautics and also for basically remote control of these vehicles, since so much of it is going to be on robotics. So we've got students that are looking at those kinds of aspects.
What do you think the keys are going to be to that commercialization of space? Where's the points, I guess, that's going to get it to the next step?
Well, I think, Troy, one of the hardest barriers has been socially that if it's space, it's being an astronaut. So it's hard to get students to understand that it's all the same thing. And I think the points that you and Adam made at the beginning are really salient, in that you were talking about different types of welding. I think when we get folks to understand that the kinds of skills and knowledge base that is used in more of a ubiquitous manner in all kinds of industry that are traditionally more referred to as ground-based, that those skills transfer over. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing, is to get the social perception change that space could be for me too. And I think when we get people to start thinking that way, then the next step, the next part that I think is the next sub-answer to your question is, we start getting folks more aligned to innovation and entrepreneurship. It is so ingrained in us, particularly folks my age, because we grew up all with NASA and military. It's hard to get folks, over the hump that it's no longer that. It is for everyone. So I think there needs to be a change in mindset that happens at a social level for this commercialization to kickstart.
Where do you think education plays a role in that?
Well, I I'm biased, but obviously I think it plays a tremendous role. I think that at the collegiate level, at the college or university level, and we're a university, we definitely have a responsibility to groom and cultivate students so at least when they graduate, they've got an awareness of how space fits into the system of systems of business and social infrastructure. At the K through 12 level, that's been going on for quite a while. NASA did a very large effort back in the 80s on trying to do technology transfer and developing curriculum for K through 12 folks that would start to inspire kids and get them more hands-on aware of space. The problem is time management, and at the K through 12 level is where do you put it in the curriculum because you've got so many other things to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And also the perception by parents and by outsiders, stakeholders, is just how relevant is this? There's a lot of friction. Don't spend time teaching them about satellites. Go back to reading and writing and math. And there's a strong argument for that. I'm not saying that that's not a valid argument, but definitely I think it needs to be seamless, and it needs to be K through 12 through higher ed, and other domains need to start understanding. I tell students, go look in the literature, go walk around museums, and you'll see space in some way related to almost every domain. So I think when other domains such as history and psychology and philosophy have a little bit more integrated into their curriculum on space, then we'll see more of it becoming accepted.
That's great. Good. Adam?
Troy, are you done hijacking my interview? Just kidding. No, I think you brought up a lot of really great points, and I mean, I'm an aerospace engineer by trade, and so again, I'm biased as well. But I think when you look at the curriculum breakdown, yeah, it's important to teach math and science in the purer forms, but at the same time, if you don't give them things like space and other areas to learn about, then they don't really understand why they're learning the math in the first place.
Right. Adam, that point should be gilded because we discuss that a lot around Metropolitan State University, and my department is taking a completely different strategy than most, and we get into some pretty wild arguments internally and externally. I would rather see our students start with the topics that are traditionally taught at the advanced level so that they see relevance, and that would be actually designing the systems of systems and letting them getting a little stick time, as we refer to as flying satellites and simulation systems, even though they perhaps don't understand the physics behind it or can derive the equations. They're getting to see what it is the end goal is. And then when you introduce the math and all of the rest of the harder sciences, their appetite for that is greatly increased because they go, aha, now I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other thing too that I wanted to add to that is, well, first of all, as an aerospace engineering bachelor student, I think it was a great indication of not only what we're working towards, but also that like they let us mess up a lot, like in those early classes, and so it was like, oh wow, like I really don't know how to fly this or make this work. I need all of those other things and a better proficiency at them in order to be able to make it right. And so it was the combination of the inspiration, but also kind of that like you get a taste for it, but you get a taste for it in a way of like you're not very good at it, but you want to get better at it. And then you have a much clearer picture of this is how you get there through the calculuses and the physics and everything else. And then the other thing too that I was thinking about when you were talking about the K-12 stuff, which I thought was fascinating, is I haven't read every autobiography of every astronaut ever, but I feel like time and time again you hear about astronauts or great physicists or engineers that have worked on amazing space missions, and rarely do they say, "Oh yeah, I went to a class in college, and that's when I decided I wanted to be a rocket scientist." They say, "Oh, well, when I was a kid, I saw this, or I watched the moon landing on TV, or whatever it is," and that's how they got their inspiration from an early age. And so that's even more of an argument for cultivating that at that early age. Well, this has been great. I want to leave you with just one quick more other question. Obviously, you're doing great work in Metro State, and I'm sure they wouldn't want to lose you. But just kind of a thought experiment. If you would get to sit in someone else's seat for a day or a week or a month in the private industry, what room would you want to be in, or what decisions would you like to participate in terms of what's going on in the private world?
Boy, that's quite a question. I've never been asked something like that before. I quickly say that believe it or not, I'm not. I've gone past the point to where I would say, okay, I'm dedicated to wanting to be in space, to be an astronaut. Now I'm at my stage of life. I'm exceedingly interested in the policy and the policy development, of what do we do in space. And I think that I would like to be directly involved in exploration from the position of robotics and remote sensing. I would love to be involved in some kind of a large effort to send out waves of vehicles that go to all sectors of our solar system to collect data and information to expand our knowledge. So that's kind of where I'm geared. I don't know that I directly answered your question, but that's...
No, you did. I mean, because it's actually an interesting answer, because not too long ago that type of exploration would be purely governmental, but with the advent of companies like Planetary Resources and Deep Space Industries, it's becoming an area where there are companies that are trying to make it profitable and do it from a science and a commercial standpoint. So I think that's great. And honestly, for as much attention and celebration as human spaceflight gets, and deservedly gets, I'm much more of a robotic guy anyway, in terms of sending things out to the outer reaches of the solar system. Or recently we just crossed the solar system for the first time, and going out there and seeing what we can find as far away as we can get, because it gives us a great perspective back here at home. Well, Dr. Forrest, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I enjoyed being here.
All right, well, you're welcome to stick around, but now we're going to open things up to the community online. We do have a few questions for you, as we always tend to do, and we want to know the same things that we asked Dr. Forrest. We want to know, in your mind, how can students of all ages grow the industry? And we talked about K-12, we talked about college. You can even talk about graduate students as well, earning their master's or PhD. We'd love to know what job in the private sector you would like to try. It's really interesting for us to get the perspective of people that don't work in the aerospace industry as to what they would want to do or what they would want to change. And then specifically, this is kind of a call to action, but how would you do, or what do you plan to do your part in growing the space industry? So as you probably have seen, we have our Hangout page. You can also put your answers in the comments on our just general Google Plus page. Just search for the plus sign SpaceUnited. But you're also welcome to tweet your answers to hashtag SpaceUnited. And the same thing goes for questions that you want to ask us. So we do this every week. We dedicate some time to answer questions from the community live, and also any that you have. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, or watching us on YouTube or Vimeo, feel free to ask us questions with our contact page on our website, and we'll do our best to answer them somewhat intelligently. So with that, Troy, what have we got?
Well, we do have one question that came in from our Google Hangout Q&A here. The question was sent to us in Russian, so I apologize if the translation isn't a perfect matchup, but I believe that we were asked, when are we launching machines to research Jupiter's satellites? And, there are 67 satellites of the planet Jupiter, so there's quite a lot to research out there.
Just a quick clarification. So for those of you listening, you might think satellites are always man-made, but satellites are sometimes referred to both natural and man-made or artificial. So Troy, you're referring to like moons and other natural satellites, correct?
I am, yeah. So yeah, the question is, when are we launching our own satellites or equipment to research Jupiter's moons and its natural satellites? And it's a good question. There's several agencies out there, I believe, that have future missions planned. The biggest one is probably JUICE is the name of it, and that's the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, which is being worked on by ESA, and it's set to launch in 2022. So a little ways down the road. It seems to be one of the next missions that are headed out that way, but there are others in the works as well.
I haven't looked at this recently, but there's another couple missions. I think one of them is called Juno. I don't know where it is on its flight path, but the reality is that other planets, whether it's Mars relatively close by or Jupiter and Saturn much further away, it just takes a long time to get there. So I mean, it takes a while to plan a mission and to fund a mission and to engineer a mission and to launch a mission, but then you have to wait several years before it even gets there. So there are ones like Troy was talking about that are in development, but even the ones that have already launched may just kind of be on their way, flying pretty darn fast towards Jupiter, and then as it gets near, they'll probably come back up into the news about their data collection. So keep an eye out for that. We are a little over time, but we haven't had a chance to talk too much about questions. So anything from the Twitterverse, Troy?
No, I haven't seen anything over there, and I just posted on our Hangouts page if anybody has any questions. So if you do, get them in quick, because we are about to wrap things up here.
All right. Well, anything that you'd like to add? Anything that you wanted to mention in terms of your thoughts, Troy, concerning any of the answers that we were looking for? You kind of mentioned during the interview your thoughts about the student aspect. What about the private sector job or the way that you're doing your part?
Well, I mean, as the founder of SpaceUnited, I guess part of what I hope to demonstrate with what we're doing is that space is available to everybody. It's part of our rights that space we have access to it, and that it's ours, and everybody should get the opportunity to participate in it. And that's part of the reason why this organization exists. Now we're trying to get as many people united together as possible to improve people's lives through space exploration, and that can happen in so many different ways. I feel like we're really just starting to scratch the surface a year and a half into our organization. I do want to again, thank Jeff, Dr. Forrest for joining us today and for being one of our advisors for the organization. We've had the opportunity to work with Metro State University in several different capacities. We had the opportunity to host Space Up Denver there last year. We've also worked with several interns from that university, and again, I think this is a brilliant way to demonstrate how everybody can get involved. We've had interns that were content writers, people that are going for degrees in journalism and think that they're going to be writing some boring blog content for for a newspaper or whatever the case may be, and we had a writer working for us. And there's all kinds of different opportunities for everybody at every different skill level to get involved and to contribute in some way. And it may not be that you're welding a rocket, but there's lots of other needs in the space industry, and I hope that lots of people consider how they can apply their skill sets to improving the world.
Well, that was a great stump speech, so thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean I agree with you, and obviously as a member of the staff here at Space United, we welcome anyone and everyone to get involved, and I think ironically one of the most important ways that you can get involved through our volunteer page is we have a list of jobs and responsibilities and roles that we're looking for, but then we leave it open to the last one is other, and we've gotten some really interesting and really helpful people that have come along in that area, and we really mean it. It's not just sort of just to be inclusive to everyone. We want you to challenge us and make us think of things that we haven't thought about, and join our organization in any capacity that you can, whether it's volunteering your time and expertise, or coming to our events, or donating your money, and we promise to put it to good use. So thank you again to Dr. Forrest. Thank you, co-host Troy. Thank you, Internet, for tuning in. And we're going to sign off here. Until next week, keep exploring for good.